everybody, and reconvene the council meeting. And we're on item number 9, which is Lakewood Water Quality Investment. Anything further to add to what's in the report?
Yes, through the chair. Just there's a correction to be made on page 69 on point 1. It refers to up until now the Lakewood Extension Project LHEP. The Aquatic Park Charitable Trust and Huntington Park Property Association have managed and operated the lake and surrounding land. It actually isn't all of those, it's just the Lakewood Extension Project. So delete from Ashburton Aquatic Park Charitable Trust through to the Huntington Park Property Owners Association. And then on point 2, the last sentence, as it has become too onerous for LHEP, not the partner agencies.
Thanks, Neil. Any, nothing further to add, Neil? That's it. Changes. Questions, councillors? I just have one question. It's on bullet point number 3. We've got 715,000 in the draft account, budget. That's to run Lakewood as it is, with the contract with ACL who's going to take it over.
As well as the additional costs associated with stuff that Open Spaces team will be looking after as well.
And the weed harvester.
And security and the weed harvester. Yep.
We had a report in October of last year setting this contract up, and we had a quoted price from ACL, and there was a price there, and it was plus the harvester, which was included in that price, which doesn't come to this figure. So, and that was quite a detailed contract we got, quotation.
Yep.
Which was covering all those things. So what extra stuff is Parks and Reserve doing that contract's not covering is probably my question. Somewhere at the $200,000 difference.
I think it's to do with public conveniences, security, but I can get that clarified and share that with you.
Okay.
Through the chair, there was,
Leah?
through the chair, there was also costs around consents work we had to finish there as well. That Tanya put in.
Russell? Sorry, Liz.
Thank you, through the chair. What is the 200 plus the 50? Is that coming out of the general rate? How's that rated?
That's you. Yeah.
Thank you, through the chair. That's being funded out of the urban amenity rate, which is 50% general rate and 50% urban. So Ashburton urban area,
Thank you.
of which Lakewood is a part of.
Caroline?
What can you just elaborate on the security, please? What is the security? A gate?
The gates are shut. Stop being awesome.
Look, I'll get more information for you. It's to do with opening and closing security gates and having security visit the site. I'll get that information.
And is that currently happening at the moment before we take over?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
And so that's in the existing payment. They're managing that.
LHEP do pay for that.
Thanks, Ian.
I thought when we took over the lake, the consents was sorted. That was one of the criteria that we took it over. The consents was sorted out by the, before we took it over. So I understand going forward, but that's like a budget ongoing cost. But anything in arrears, you wouldn't take over. You don't take over anything with consents that aren't up to scratch. That's just one of the things. Could you explain that to us, please, Neil?
Hamish?
Just before Neil gives the detail, there is a range of consents associated with Lakewood, many consents. There are, as we understand it, some of those consents are not currently compliant, or behaviour is not currently compliant with those consents, and we have always said, we've always maintained, and I know the chairman of LHEP completely acknowledges that when the transition comes to council management on 1 July 2024, that we won't be taking over any consents that are not compliant. That's causing some difficulty because, of course, all the consents are all tangled up with the entire operation. So that that statement is easy to say and not as easy to comply with. In terms of the consents that are compliant, we need to continue to comply and continue to monitor and continue to meet our obligations in relation to those consents. So consent compliance is a multifaceted item associated with Lakewood.
So another question. So probably what's concerning, I think, all of us is that we thought we'd done a budget that covered off our ongoing costs and that, and now we're faced with sure, the one-off water quality thing, that's from a different avenue, but the consent one is very much business as usual almost. Am I right there?
Yes, but I think what we're considering here as another layer of issue is the water quality. So when we did the work with LHEP and negotiated a management amount with council and ACL, that wasn't associated with the algal blooms that have been there in the last 2 seasons. And so this report is actually associated with extra resource required to try and deal with water quality at Lakewood. The 715, and I heard Neil say he's going to give you some more detail on that. The 715 is not associated with the algal bloom issue which the lake is currently faced with, and that's why we're seeking this additional resource.
Caroline?
Just want to elaborate on that water quality concern. That is a $200,000 one-off water mitigation quality.
That's correct. That's what the Water Quality Task Force they've identified a whole lot of options for addressing the water quality. What we have focused on is what we can do immediately within our current consent conditions to get more water down to the right part of the lake.
So when I read the things that are options, key recommendations, and then underneath that in the report is lake management mitigation options and other updates. We've got the weed harvester that has previously been paid for in the $707,000. So what activities are costing $200,000? In actual things,
Of this money that's been requested.
Yes.
So the 100,000 will be to construct the channel that'll divert from the current intake and into a different part of the lake.
We nearly can consent for that.
No.
Okay.
And then the other two, then there's 50,000 for intake works to make the intake more efficient, and then the design for a second outlet. So it's all to improve the water flow.
The flow.
Yes.
So it's flow
to help
activity.
address the water quality. Yep.
So all this other activity in the mitigation things, the potassium sumps, lining the bottom of the thing, agitating, flushing it through, emptying the lake, putting it back in, they are not at the moment on the table.
Not at the moment, no. Those are sort of medium to long term and largely dependent on consenting and discussing whether you
So
can.
on the table is putting a new inlet in, fiddling around with the inlet.
Creating another inlet off the current intake.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then putting an outlet in so to improve flow through the lake system.
Improving the flow and the efficiency of the inlet and outlet, yes.
What is the expected time for improvement based on those activities before the lake?
It's hard to know. We'll just have to monitor. It's time will tell. It will definitely produce water, fresh water in the area where there hasn't been. So there's bound to be an improvement, but it's hard to say before.
But if you're putting nothing in, if we're not allowed to take more out of the Ashburton River, because the flow at the bridge is 3.9 cumecs or whatever it is as has been over the summer, if there's no extra water going through, then those things will not work. I'm guessing.
No, without this diversion, it'll continue to go down through the main part of the lake. This diversion will divert part of the water down to the parts in the channel,
about where the
canals.
rowers start and down the canals and things.
It'll come in just there where the jumping platform is on that part of the lake.
Councillor Mackel?
Neil, how long is that channel for 100 grand, and how much water is expected? What sort of volume of water will be poked into that part of the lake?
I don't know that offhand. The length, I think it's about 750 metres.
At what depth?
2 to 3 metres, I think. And it needs fencing on either side as well, and it needs a culvert to allow the lessee of the land to be able to operate.
So all the 100 grand covers that?
Yes.
The fencing, etc.?
Yes, that's all been costed with ACL and Viv Iberg.
Councillor Wilson?
Could you just explain us the relationship? Because obviously, people will go down there and see all the new development of the lake and the new. Can you just explain more for general public how the developer who will benefit from the lake working better, because obviously the sections go up and you sell more sections, how they're contributing to this, or how does that relationship work?
I think it's, as been mentioned before, it is a facility that's largely used by the wider public, and if that's what you're asking, if it's not just for the residents, it's also enjoyed by others.
I'm probably referring to the more development going on there by a developer's developing a big area of, we're part of that, obviously, new sections, and if the lake is cleaned up, that will obviously enhance their position quite a bit. We're being asked to contribute. Does the developer contribute too, in a way, or how do they, because they'll benefit from a clean lake. So I'm just trying to understand.
Everyone would benefit from a clean lake. It has been cleaned up for the last 2 years.
And the owners of all property, which includes any developers, will be contributing through their share of the rates. Council is the owner of the lake, so the obligation is sits with council to work with those with knowledge and expertise and experience to do all we can to get it back to being a clean lake.
The developers will be paying development contributions, reserve contributions, etc.
Yes, but I don't know that directly relates to this work, but they certainly will be paying whatever reserve contributions they're obliged to pay.
Carol?
So Neil, just to tighten down on this, you're going to get a 750 drain at 3 to 4 metres deep with gates attached for 100,000, with gates fencing it off to protect the lessees for $100,000.
Yes, that's the budget that we've calculated. If it works out less, it'll be less.
Then it's over, yeah.
Yes.
So the extra $100 is going to those other things, a new outlet and other things.
Yes, to improve the intake works, to get it more efficient and get the water through. There are some issues with that, and then the second is to design the second outlet to perform more efficiently.
And you are saying that even if next summer is a dry summer and we're not allowed to take any water off the river, we're going to improve the flow through the lake. I don't know how that would happen. A little bit of nothing, still nothing.
Well, at the moment, when the flow comes into the lake, it's just going down through the main part of the lake.
So you're
it's not
hoping
getting
in
into
the winter, when we're
Just
flushing it.
wanted to
Sorry,
answer
Neil,
the question, Caroline, before you ask another one. Please.
Yeah.
Yes, whenever there's flow, and typically in winter, when most of the flow does come into the lake, it will flush that part of the lake as well, whereas previously it didn't.
It's creating bigger lake flow, better lake flow.
Splitting the lake flow, not just in one area, it's splitting into the other side as well, down through the canals.
Councillor Lover?
I was just going to ask, the lake users, like the big events and that, are they charged a fee for them? Because that would bring income to help with all this. Do they pay fees, or like the big rowing events, or they just book it and there's no money coming in?
That has been managed by LHEP, so I'm not aware of what happens with that at the moment, but I can find out for you.
Have a look at that. Also, there was an honesty box down there for at the launching pad, and I'm wondering whether, like I know a lot of other lakes around New Zealand, they have an annual fee for like casual users, of the district to pay up. I know on the West Coast we pay $160 a year to go down and use a brand new boat ramp, and the casuals just have there's a number there, and you pay $10, I think $8 or $10 to put your boat in for the day. And I'm wondering whether to get finance for this lake for the future going, should we be looking at that, every bit of money will help.
We can look at that. That's not currently part of the regime at
but we
Lakewood,
need
but
to.
having a look at it in the future makes sense.
I think if you want to have a look at that, you would go back and have a look at the founding document when the lake was built, and you'll probably find something in there that says that lake is to be free for all users in perpetuity. So there can be no launching fee charged. There has been an honesty box, but it's entirely up to someone's honesty if they want to contribute. But I think that's the first step, is to go right back to the founding document and see what that says.
Yeah, well, we can examine that and confirm it, Mr Mayor.
Further questions? No, there's a recommendation there, councillors. Councillor Ellis, you wish to move?
Yes, I do, Mr Mayor.
As stated.
As written,
If
yes.
you want to read it,
Council approves 200,000 operational funding in year one for water quality projects as a one-off, and that Council approves 50,000 of operational funding for ongoing consent, compliance and monitoring work from years 1 to 3 of the LTP 2024 to 34.
thank you. Seconded, Councillor Brown.
Yes, I did.
Debate. Phil, Councillor Hooper.
Talk in favour. From what I've learnt about the lake, the most important thing seems to be the flow of the water, and we need to keep on ECAN's tail to get that non-consumptive take over the line, but this uses that water that we are allowed in the best possible way, so I talk in favour.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Yes, I'm also in supportive of trying to fix this problem. As I said the other day, if we can fix the problem, I'm sure about 20 other lakes around the country will be just as happy. So, as I say, we're working hard. It's all about water flow, and it's just one way that we're trying to fix that problem ongoing.
Councillor Wilson.
I support doing it, and I also support that we keep liaison with the Carters Creek catchment group who are critical to this path. But at the same time, we need to be very cognizant that as we go forward, we can't just keep dropping money into Lakewood. We need to be certain of our next few years, because it could be a never-ending pit of money if we're not careful.
No further speakers for or against. Councillor Cameron.
I support the motion, but I would like updates as to how it's going, and when 2 years is a reasonable amount of time to assess, you know, the 200,000 or 1 year or whatever. I'd like to see regular updates as part of that.
The 200,000 is a one-off. Yeah. So you'd like reporting back on how it's when it's spent. Sure, we'll get that. Yeah. No further speak. Oh, Rob.
Yeah, just the 100 grand on 750 of channel, I think is probably a little bit steep. You can get along 750 metres of channel very quickly with a grader nowadays, instead of using a digger. And now I believe that the consent is available from Stockwater out of the RDR. I think we should also pursue finding out if we can have those consents changed over to have the stock water pumped into the Ashburton River, and then consented into the Lakewood, which would allow a considerable amount of water going through Lakewood to flush out any problems.
The officers may need more detail around your suggestion there for follow that through, because me hearing it, I don't think it's possible that can happen. But if you've got other information, you could present it to the chief executive on how it could happen, and he may.
It's just a resource that I see available now out of the RDR to go into the Ashburton River up at the top, let it flow down Ashburton River, use that same consent to go into Lakewood, which allows us a considerable amount of water to be flushing through Lakewood without being restricted by ECAN in the future. It's just an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we understand the idea. What we've been focusing on here is some capacity to do some work which we think will be beneficial as soon as possible. This is not the last word on everything to be done in relation to improving the water quality at Lake Hood, and there will be ongoing work in conjunction with any number of other parties, including ECAN, as to what else we can do to improve the sustainability of the water quality over a long period of time. This particular initiative in the LTP being proposed is something that we can get on and do if we have the money to do it, without having to negotiate with ECAN around consents or anything else. This won't be the only thing that we're trying to do, but it is something simple and within our control right now if we have the resource. So I think we understand the second point you're trying to make. There is process involved in that, which we're trying to work through in a parallel fashion to this piece, which doesn't require those complications.
The consent for the RDR water, I believe, has to be released back in, I think Andy said 32, 33. So yeah, we need to start putting those ideas to them and get that process in place. I know it's not an immediate answer, but long term a very good one.
The consents he talked about are takes from the Ashburton River.
Yes, I understand that.
There's no Ashburton River water in the RDR.
I understand that, but there could be the RDR water available to be released into the Ashburton River for use for Lake Hood in the future, if we start pushing for that now.
Yeah, that might take some thinking about, but it's a separate subject to this. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I'm just the other way. In between the RDA and the lake is a lot of land. There might be other projects as well. We're looking for water.
Lane, there's two totally different subjects going on here. We're looking at the motion we've got in front of us, which has nothing to do with RDR or stock water. We're looking at approved operational funding for Lake Hood. It's another subject for another day, but useful, but not for now. Councillor Ellis, do you right to reply? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. The next item is on page 90. Airport fees and charges, decisions for the LT long-term plan. Anything further to add? No. In the report, questions, Councillor. Oh, Tony, do you have something? No. Questions, councillors. Councillors?
Just wondering if, and I don't recall, that the effect of the change we made on our revenue and financing policy would take fees and charges to 30 to 40% and general rate input of 60 to 70 was, I don't think that was explained to us yesterday when we had the discussion. I've lost track of days. But
Through Mr Mayor, no, we were asked to examine 200 plus 12 to see what impact or effect that would have, and we think it'll generate less revenue than the revenue and financing policy requires, and therefore we're seeking an amendment to the revenue and financing policy in association with this particular fee proposal.
So if we adopt the new fee, then we'll earn X dollars. So what dollars do we earn with the previous fee to compare the two? What are the numbers? I see one number here of 19,000-ish. What was the previous number?
Are we talking about the previous number for this current financial year with the existing? So year to date, 13,739 as at April.
Yeah, and it's got another 3 months to go. Two months to go. So if you extrapolated that out at the same rate, what would you get to, do you think?
We're estimating it around 16,000, I believe.
So the new, what we're proposing today would give you 19,000 per year?
Correct. That's based on, and we'll
Last year's.
just be really clear about that, is we can't predict what's going to happen. I think that if you just refer back to the numbers that AOPA had provided over the two 12-month periods, even though they weren't the financial years, they are suggesting that there was a decrease year on year of 1,700 movements. So it's unknown where those numbers will sit, but based on the data that we've got for the last two financial years, they're the numbers that it would work out at.
So it's actually more than what we got last year, but still not enough to meet the
Correct.
the funding policy.
Correct.
Yeah, but it is more than what we got last year.
Correct, and there it is the assumption that all of the existing annual people who've got an annual landing charge would renew it under the new rate, and we have no evidence of that.
If I may also add, through the Mayor, is there is a change to, because it's a flat rate, there are some that will be affected by that change. So the smaller planes, the microlights, the home builts, that kind of thing, would be looking at a 50% increase. So they'll be going from the $8 up to the $12.
Yep. Richard.
Afternoon. Can you just give us a number, because we've been through this ad nauseum and they were very passionate submitters and we were trying to see through the trees to actually see where we've got to. How much money will the ratepayers be contributing now to run the airport every year? Because they deserve to know what it's going to cost them each year.
Through the chair, so in the current year one of the LTP, we've got that budgeted at 109,000.
It's good. So the airport users are putting in some money for this. They rent some hangars. We earn a wee bit of other income, but the council, the ratepayers are putting, it's quite a lot of money into the airport each year. Yep, no, that's great.
So you just mentioned microlights at $8, which will go to 12. I'm looking at the chart here on page 92. There's no mention of a microlight in there on fees and charges.
So through Mr. Mayor, on page 92, officers had presented that middle ground, which is basically looking at it was based on the weight of the plane, rather than what was in today's fees and charges being a set weight between, say, 0 and 600, then 601 to 1500. So that was the current, so what we were proposing is based on the weight, there would be a per tonne charge. So that's...
Oh, that's how the microlight gets $8 on his weight.
No, this is proposing a $10 minimum charge. So it was proposed to change that from currently it might be $9. $9. Yeah, the current charge for a microlight's $9. Apologies. So looking to change that from 9 to 10, whereas this proposal is to change it from 9 to 12.
The in commercial, the workshop we talked about commercial. What do they get charged? There's nothing here. Have you done any work? Had a chance to do any work on that?
Through the Mayor, with the commercial, I would still think that officers recommend that if you set a charge in the fees and charges, then that's what the commercial operator will be charged. Every commercial operator is going to use those parameters to their best advantage. If you looked at, say, what a commercial flight school being introduced versus, say, your fertiliser spreader, they're quite different operations, and council would probably want to have the ability to actually input into the structure of that fee structure. And the reasons for that is, say, for a commercial flight school, we would have additional implications from Civil Aviation Authority. So we would probably want to structure that differently to actually cover off those risks and additional compliance costs.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just further to that, if you note on paragraph 16, officers are noting that there are 3 historical commercial arrangements. So when we say commercial on a case-by-case basis, we're actually only talking currently of 3 such arrangements. So it would make sense that there might be the ability to continue to negotiate those case by case. And if we had an additional commercial arrangement discussion, then it wouldn't be difficult to have that.
Approximately what does commercial rates bring in to the airport?
I'm sorry, I don't have that on hand right now.
Is it not tens, 20, 30 thousands of dollars? It's lots more. Yeah. Yeah. Liz?
Thank you. The revenue and finance policy, that's reviewed every 3 years, and we obviously review our fees and charges annually. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, if we set this as a fee now and then we find that it's not lining up with our revenue and finance policy next year or the year after, can we only just increase our fees and charges then, or we can't change the structure like we have done now, can we?
Through the chair, so the revenue and financing policy as it stands right now is still a draft, and that won't be locked down until the 26th of June.
Yeah.
And so we've got flexibility to realign the revenue and financing policy to suit different parameters if you now have a different view from what you did have at the time that we went out for consultation. So there's 2 ways. You could either leave it as is and make a point to say that actually we're going to graduate our income from the stream to get there over a period of a set amount of years, or you can amend your policy or change your policy before we adopt it.
One of the things we try and do 2 things here. One is to have the band in the revenue and financing policy wide enough to accommodate the vagaries of reality versus budget. And then the second thing that we're trying to do here is make these changes for only 1 year, because to Renee's point, we don't know how the market is going to respond to 200 plus 12, and there may be behaviour that charging regime drives that's not anticipated at the time of setting a budget, and therefore we won't know what revenue this is going to generate. We assume that in light of the submissions there's going to be a number of airport users that will be happy with the change made. But if that change doesn't generate the money that council expects, then it runs the risk of still being outside the parameters set by the revenue and financing policy. So we're in that state of flux until we've seen some behaviour. We won't actually know. The second reason for having the change only in place for 1 year, of course, is council has also given us direction around examining what a different operating model might look like at the airport, and it might render all the work around fees and charges and revenue and financing policy implications redundant, depending on what structure or what arrangements council may enter into over the coming 12 months with whatever group that might involve. So we just thought, make the change in terms of what we've heard you say, amend the revenue and financing policy, what we think that will do, but in the end, all of that is going to be proof, by the reality of how the market reacts.
Yeah, I think it needs to be broad enough to meet policy now, but get to where we want to get in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Richard?
Why can't we leave the policy as it is now? Because that's the signal we're trying to send. It's just been through the process that we've ended up where we are a bit, but the process, we're trying to get to a point where the airport is a bit more financially, well, when I say viable, I wouldn't use 100,000 a year loss of viable. I'd say less red, a wee bit tiny more blue, effectively. So, can't we leave the policy where it is as a signal? Because as soon as we change the policy to match it, everybody thinks we're fine, we're doing what we need to do, and I don't believe we are doing what we need to do. We're outside of where we should be. Is that so? Can we leave it where it is? That's my question.
It's not our recommendation that you would leave it where it is, because we don't think this change will deliver compliance with that policy. And I think one of the things that has got us to where we've got to is the impact of the revenue and financing policy in its current form on the work that Renee and Leanne have been doing around the fee structure, because the revenue and financing policy is driving that behaviour. I don't think it's right that you leave the revenue and financing policy in place and then change the fees where we will almost certainly fail to meet the policy. If you want the fee structure to be as per this recommendation, then you've got to be realistic about your policy ambitions, because this in reality we don't think will drive the revenue to comply with the current policy.
Two things. I was just wondering if we, first question, can delay the decision on this instead of being today, being Wednesday, as we're having a meeting with the airport group on Monday, and we could run some of these ideas past them. At the moment, number 4 you've got there for an alternative management operation models is more driven at the group taking over the airport. I don't believe it's excuse the pun, going to be a flyer. It would be too hard and unaffordable for the group. And pushing this back in your face, I don't think is a good idea. As far as a 1-year term,
You got a question?
Yes, I have. The question is, I was, instead of the 1 year, I suggested 5 years yesterday in the hope that I could possibly get 3. For the reason that it would give the group time to drum up more support with people paying the $200 annual fee and the $12 landing, which gives them an opportunity basically to build up business. Over 1 year would be very difficult for them to show a decent return on
The question
their
to the
ideas.
staff is,
Can that happen?
Well, yes, but my advice to you would be that I don't think you're incentivising anyone to drum up business, because if we're continuing to operate the airport, the user group isn't trying to, they've got no incentive to drum up business. I think the reality of point 4 is in response to a request from the users. So you might be right, it may turn out to be too hard. It may be that we can't achieve that with all the obligations and responsibilities that we have. But it was actually a suggestion from the user group that they felt they might be better off if we did that. We felt...
I believe that was the Mayor's suggestion.
No, it's in the submissions.
it was in submissions where I got
It's in the submissions, and a number of the submitters did say, hand it over to us and we'll all be better off. So that was to acknowledge that comment. Whether that's
Apologies, yep.
whether we can achieve that or not, of course, is a moot point. But that was to investigate it. While that investigation was carrying on, we felt that the fee should just be. Look, in many ways, Council, I think this was to give the submitters, what's the right word? We were listening to the submitters around their concerns at the proposed structure, and we were acknowledging those concerns and agreeing with their suggested fees from the aircraft owners for 1 year while we investigated management options. We think this will generate less revenue than our own proposal. And ultimately, if we locked that in, Council may or may not be particularly happy about that. But making this change just for 1 year, while we investigated ongoing management arrangements, seemed to be a reasonable response to the submissions we heard. That's where I think this suite of suggestions has come from in terms of the submissions we heard.
Yeah, and just an answer to the question about leaving it, the decision until next Wednesday after we've met with the group.
That's a fair point, and if Council wishes to do that, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
We could do that, or we could do it now and change. Oh, no, once we've done it, we've done it. Yeah, fair point. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. And I was up at a talk it up Tuesday when someone came in and from the airport users and suggested this idea along. Councillor Hooper was there as well. My question is just for clarification with these fees and meeting that. that's only part of it, isn't it? The rest is those leases that you're working on at the moment. So that's the other unknown side too, which could improve the scenario or may make it worse, even if the evaluation is quite different to ours and there is some middle ground. It will actually change that as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. At this stage, we don't know. We've done our best guess in our long-term plan of revenue, combined revenue of the two. We can't answer any more than that at this stage.
The leases, though, they won't be affected each year, will they? There'll be a normal lease, which will be, I don't know what they are, whether they're 3+3 or what they are, but they won't be readdressed each year under the fees and charges when we do our annual plan.
Correct. This is a separate process. Every lease has got its own review timeframes. So, yes.
Is there any thought for simplicity of bringing those all into line for the one area, if you like, as being the airport, to simplify things for in-house administration?
The way that the leases have been set up is it's timed with when the hangars were built. So there'd be quite a lot of effort to go and do that and in terms of cost and that kind of thing. So it's possibly best as it is.
So to be clear, the income that comes from those leases, it goes into the airport account.
Yes, it does.
Okay. No, Tony.
This would basically go along with what the airport have suggested. Why would we need to consult with them? Because basically what's up on the screen is their proposal to us anyway, isn't it? So that they're going to agree with what we've got if we go with this.
Yep, correct. The proposal we've got here now, the 200 and the 12, and it collects X dollars, which you said. The proposal that you went out with, how many dollars was that going to collect?
We haven't calculated that. So what we would have to do is quite a lot more analysis because it's based on the weight of the plane. So we hadn't projected that out.
Could I ask what assumptions we made for inclusion in the LTP budget?
Through the chair, we did grow that. So we had it, I want to say this current year that we're in, I can't remember if it's 10 or 12, and we budgeted to go to 15, and that because we thought we would remove the annual landing fee, landing charge.
$15,000.
Just for the landing fees, not for the commercial.
So the 200 to 12 is landing fees. So the two are very, very close. And this one looks a lot simpler than the other method. Yeah. I think it looks that way.
I'm not sure around the timings, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Further questions? None. We've got a recommendation there. Someone would like to move and read it. Councillor Todd.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
You're moving it?
Yeah.
Would you like to read it? It's just the fact, I'm just reading resolutions today because the general public hasn't seen these documents because they came out last night. So people who are listening in won't know what we are. So if you'd like to read the resolution. So,
Thank you. I'll move that the council introduces a bulk landing fee of $200 for annual fee holders for 24-25. 2, the council introduces a flat $12 fee per landing to include all landings for up to 1 hour for casual airport users for 24-25. 3, the council amends the revenue and financing policy for the Ashburton Airport from 40 to 50% fees and charges and 50 and 60% fees general rate to 30-40% fees and charges of 70% general rate taking effect from 1st of July 2024. 4, that council directs officers to investigate alternative management and operation models for the Ashburton Airport over years 24-25.
thank you. Seconder? Councillor Graham? Open for debate. Councillor Mackle?
Sorry, just learning the process. I want to move an amendment to move this the decision until Wednesday, please.
Until later in the meeting? The
Next
meeting will
Wednesday.
be running through till Wednesday.
Later in the meeting, yeah.
The seconder for that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Just to be clear, that won't be an amendment, it's a procedural motion that you're putting it on the table.
Letting the matter lie on the table until later in the meeting, which will be next Wednesday. And moved and seconded, we don't even have to put that, do we? Yes, we do. Can't get one past you, can I? Yeah, that's what you can't vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thanks. It'll sit there till later in the meeting, which will be next Wednesday. Thank you. Oh, okay. Yep. Page 108, community funding request. I think it's 108, it's the next one. Yep, 11, item 11. Tony, anything further to add?
Thank you. Through the chair, nothing further to add. Just drawing your attention to, there is a grant direction that was set by council during the workshop discussions for the aviation museum. That might have some different information based on what I've heard through conversation with elected members. So I guess my perhaps the easiest way to tackle this one, given there are 16 recommendations there, is perhaps to go one by one and make sure you're comfy as we go along.
Yeah, I think we'll go through them one by one and then we'll move them as one bulk resolution at the end, but we'll do each one as we get there, as we go through. Caroline?
I was just going to, do you want to do the airport one now, or the airport here, the museum, or do you want to wait till it gets down to that number?
I don't know, we'll just do them in order,
Okay.
one by one. Russell?
The only problem with that is if you're not happy with one of them, it becomes a bit of a messy process. but-
Okay, we'll do each.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, okay, we'll do them in parts, we'll get to that shortly. Any questions? Well, here we, yeah, yeah.
Mr Mayor, can I move that we take these recommendations in order one at a time, please?
A second for that. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. We'll do them one by one. So we'll start with the first one. Do we need a motion for that, or are we going to get questions on that? If we move this, then we're not going to get any clarification from staff. Are we? Questions on one by one now, right. Okay, the first one. Council enters into a 3-year level service agreement with Ashburton Event Centre and approves operational funding of 337,800 in year 1 of the long-term plan and increasing by inflation until year 3. Any questions on that? Richard?
This has been in the long-term plan all the way through. We've consulted on it. That's right, isn't it? Everybody's, it's there. So is that
Yes,
right?
correct. This is not new funding to the long-term plan, it's just confirmation.
Right. Move with that motion. Number 1.
I'll move.
Councillor McMillan, seconded.
I'd like to second that.
Councillor
please.
Cameron. Open for debate. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Number 2, that council allocates 40,000 per annum across years 1 to 10 of the long-term plan to the Ashburton Event Centre Capital Reserve, with the Ashburton Event Centre to apply for the funding as needed. Questions? Liz?
Thank you, through the chair. So does this sit in our grants and funding, or is this in a separate pot? But the event centre still has to apply up to 40, sorry, I've got a lot of questions, up to $40,000 each time, or how will it work?
Thank you. Through the chair, I need to sit down with finance and confirm all of this, but this is a layman's accounting speak. Now, is $40,000 would be collected each year through the grants 207 cost centre account, and then that would sit in a reserve, and it may be that the event centre doesn't request any funding from that for 2 or 3 years. By that stage it would have built up and there's a pot there, or it may be that they are coming to us in that first year saying, yes, we need to call on the 40,000 straight away.
And do we need to add something in that if it's not spent in year 1, 2 or 3, that it is carried forward over year 1? Generally we'll have to do a carry forward if it's not mentioned that way. Leanne?
Through the chair, if we didn't spend it, it would just hit the targeted reserve, for lack of a better word, and sit there, and you'd see it in your set of reserves because it would be one that couldn't be touched for any other reason.
Because it's targeted.
Correct.
Great. Yeah. Carolyn?
Am I correct in that we haven't depreciated that, we don't have funding set aside from depreciation for the event centre? That is correct, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
So this would be a non-contestable fund?
Yes, it would be ring-fenced only for the event centre.
Right, Russell?
Thank you. And they would be able to ask for this money at any time of need, not at our specific funding times.
Yes, it would have to come back through council
Yes.
to make the final decision.
Mover? I'll move.
I second.
Second it. Councillor Brown. Debate. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Number 3, council enters into a 3-year level service agreement with Citizens Advice Bureau and approves the operational funding of $15,625 in year 1, adding to year 3 with inflation. As written. Questions? So we'd like to move. Councillor Cameron. Seconded. Councillor Hooper. Debate. Carol.
We've had regular feedback from Sarah with regards to Citizens Advice Bureau, and the numbers using that facility are increasing every time we meet with them. It's doing a very useful role, and I'm very, very happy to support this service in our community.
Speakers for or against? No. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Number 4, council enters a 3-year service level agreement with Safe Communities and approves operational funding of $54,000 in year 1, moving to $55,000 in year 3 of the long-term plan. Questions or clarification? Recommendation there. Councillor McMillan moved.
like to move.
Councillor Ellis seconded. Debate. Liz.
Again, through Safe Communities, there's a lot of good work being done, and I think it's essential that we support this.
Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Number 5, council enters into a 3-year service level agreement with Safer Mid Canterbury and approves funding of $220,500 in year 1, moving to $230,985 in year 3 of the long-term plan. Questions? Mover. Councillor Hooper, Councillor Brown. Debate. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Number 6, the council approves operational funding of $67,600 for Sport Canterbury in year 1 of the long-term plan. Questions? Clarification? I'd like to move. Councillor Todd. Councillor Ellis. Debate. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Number 7, that council does not fund the Hakatiri Multicultural Council through the long-term plan and instead considers the funding request through the contestable grant process being reported to council on the 5th of June 2024. Councillor McMillan.
You just got a question.
Yep.
Is the maximum they can apply for through our grant funding $10,000?
Thank you. Through the chair, no, the community agency funding doesn't have a cap on it.
Is it?
It's just the divvy out amongst all the different applicants.
So they could apply for $25,000?
Correct, they could.
Questions, Councillor Cameron?
Yeah, what was the monies they did apply for? How much was it? 25,000.
I'll move. Mia moves. Second it. Councillor Wilson, debate. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. 8, the council approves funding for the Plains Museum Trust via the Tynwald Reserve Board of up to 35,000 year one of the long-term plan for signage and entranceway upgrades.
Can I just, sorry Neil, can I record my negative vote to the last one, please?
You voted against? Number 7, Councillor Cameron voted against. Upgrades in 20,000 year 2 of the long-term plan for a site development plan. Questions? Councillor Brown.
Oh, sorry, I'm just moving.
I have got questions first. Councillor Wilson.
So this is new money that we're finding out of our, above our 10% rate increase to fund? I'm just asking a question, is it?
Thank you. Through the Chair, yes, this is a new funding request that come through from the consultation. It is included in the spreadsheet, which makes up the 11.8% that you were showing this morning. So it is calculated there, but it wasn't part of the LTP draft budget that we consulted the community with.
Councillor Cameron.
I remember we discussed it, and 35,000 was for signage to various things within the domain. What was it for?
That entranceway.
The entranceway. That seems a lot of money for signage. Has that been worked through, and that is a realistic amount of money?
Thank you. Through the Chair. So the board has done some work on this, and that's why the request is up to $35,000. Following the discussion that council had this week, I guess the sign off in terms of the expenditure of that funds has been intended to be the Tynwald Reserve Board. So before the Tynwald Reserve Board would sign it off and pay the bills, essentially for the Plains Museum Trust, they would have to have a degree of comfort that it was value for money.
Because it's more than we're spending on the signs to our little towns and villages in Ashburton at the moment.
No, it's not. Further questions? There's a recommendation there. Someone like to move? Councillor Brown. Councillor Hooper. Right. Councillor Brown.
Thank you for that. It certainly will help for the trust to get it going. They've been working for it a long time and didn't get anywhere, but it's moving now. You want me to read this out as well?
No, I've read it. It's fine. Yep.
Okay.
Councillor Wilson.
I can't support it because I look at a lot of others, like reserve boards as my example. They do their signage, they do their stuff, and it doesn't come back to council. And we're looking at a whiteboard that has more rate increases. Sometimes you have to cut things off, and this is one I would cut off in the meantime.
Speakers for or against? Phil?
I speak in favour. I think it's a really good facility. They bring a lot of people into town. It's always packed there in the open days, and if they need to shush up and bring up to speed the entranceway, then I think we should support them.
In the submission, they did say that all the events there are free, and that's great. Should they be free? And it might be a question the Reserve Board may want to take up with them. I'm sure they do have donations, I know, but, and they put a great display on when they have it. It is worth something, and donations cover that, but yeah, something for the Reserve Board to talk to them, to the Trust about, I think, for the future. Councillor Bill?
I support this as well. They did come to us with a request for a lot larger sum. I think we talked about this, debated this during deliberations, and I think what we've come up with is sensible.
Councillor Lovett?
I was going to ask, the Reserve Board owns or runs that camping ground. Do they not have funds coming in through that could go into this?
Sort of can't answer that because it's a question. We're in debate. But it's a good question for the Reserve Board later.
They must have funds coming through the camping ground. Yeah, I wouldn't support it if I was allowed to vote.
I'm just wondering what that question has to do with this resolution with the Plains Museum Trust when we're branching off into the camping ground.
They have funds.
I'm sure they have funds. I'm just trying to get the relationship to this Plains Trust. The two different organisations Councillor Hooper.
Around your comment on donations, Mr. Mayor, they do charge for train rides, so.
They do too, yeah. And they're good train rides too. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Against? 2, want them recorded? Carried. Item number 9, that council allocates the Ashburton Youth Council reserve of $45,000 to Base Cafe to support the youth advisory group, to be paid as $15,000 per annum over years 1, 2 and 3. Questions?
Through the chair, I have a question. How much was in that reserve account? For some reason, I thought there was 38,000, and it's saying in here there's 45,000. Just want that clarified, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, our finance team have confirmed that the reserve has $45,000 in it.
Thank you.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. And 15,000 per annum over 3 years is a nice, neat figure. I just want to, we discussed the youth council. It was under 25, but I didn't think it was school-aged members. Am I correct in that?
Through the chair, just seeking clarification on the question. Council no longer has a youth council.
No, that's correct. But this youth council,
We don't have any.
the
idea
makeup of that, we're
parameters
just
yet.
giving them a grant to make it up how they wish. Is that correct?
This is supporting a youth advisory group?
We don't have a youth council.
Oh, okay, youth advisory group. Well, it's called the Ashburton Youth Council Reserve. It's going to the youth advisory group. It's a group of youth, isn't it, to make recommendations on various things to
Your
council.
question probably is, what's this money going to be used for?
So the application from Base and Jenny, when she came in to explain it to council, was that if we could get annual funding for her youth advisory group, which is she is in the process of establishing, then that would go some way to helping them to have some ongoing costs met each year. Our role with that youth advisory group will be largely if they need us to come and talk to them about what it means to be a local governor, then elected members could go along and provide that advice, but we'll be very arm's length to this. We will not be running it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Liz?
My question may have been answered, but we did talk in deliberations about having some councillors be part of that advisory group, so I don't know how you would tie that in. This is only about funding, but conversation later down the track maybe.
Councillors to be involved in it, yep. Recommendation there, someone like to move?
Can I just, one more question? We did talk about that, and I remember we had Phil and Russell put their hands up for that role. So is the funding contingent upon that, or we're going to give the funding regardless of the council's involvement in that role? I just want some clarification around that, because that's what we discussed when we did our hui in here.
I think if council want to make it contingent upon that, then you could expressly change this recommendation and say that it's subject to council representation on the group.
Well, I think we should. We discussed that, and that's how we consented it. That's what we decided.
I think you should into some words in here.
The council allocates the Ashburton Youth Council reserve of $45,000 to Base Cafe to support the youth advisory group, to be paid in $15,000 per annum over years 1, 2 and 3, and nominates one member plus one member in reserve to be a participant on that council.
Advisory group.
On that advisory group.
Captured that, Philippa? You're moving that?
Yeah, I think so. Just with that, it be 2 elected members appointed. This council will make that 1 elected.
One and one alternate, and one member and an alternate. Do you want to name the member now? Councillor Hooper and Councillor Ellis as a alternate. If you want to move that recommendation.
Yes, please.
Second it. Councillor Wilson. Debate. I'll put the motion all for. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hooper.
Oh, I was just, I'm not 100% sure that's sort of what we said. I think they said that it could include a councillor And then, so I said, well, if that was the case, then I'd be happy to do it. So are we now saying that we're dependent, well, this money is dependent on a councillor? Yes, we are. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If the councillor's not on there, they don't get the money. Yep. Councillor McMillan?
Okay. I support the funding, but I'm not so sure that I support that councillors have to be on the advisory group. Otherwise, they don't receive the money. I think it's part of a grant. So I would like to see that we just support the funding at this stage.
Sorry. I haven't got there then. Carolyn, you moved it. We had a seconder. Richard seconded it. Yeah. Yeah. And you've spoken against the motion, Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, I'm against the motion as it stands. It's not consistent. We've just given 67,000 to Sport Mid Canterbury. Here we're asking for a council representative on there. Why suddenly? And there is no impact on rates with this. The money's sitting there in reserve. I'm not sure why we're suddenly doing that. I'm sure they'll take up the offer, but to make it contingent on that, I'm just not comfortable with. So it's almost saying we don't trust their administration.
I don't think that's the meaning at all, but Sport Mid Canterbury report to us every 6 months for contingent on their funding. Phil?
Yeah, I agree. I speak against. I think it's probably 90% going to happen, but I don't think it should be part of it.
Councillor Cameron?
Sport Mid Canterbury have a sports strategy, and they do, as you said, Neil, they do come to the council to report. We put no constraints on this funding to come to council to report. I'm happy to remove it if you're uncomfortable to, remove that proviso in the motion if you're uncomfortable with it. And as you say, hopefully it is 90% adopted. But I don't think it's a good message to just send. I mean, I know the money is there. I know it's not been. I understand that, but I'm just not sure that that's the right message to be sending out either.
Is the seconder happy to have that those last words removed? So we're back to what's written on the paper. Is now the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. 10. The council does not allocate funding to Base Cafe for a youth worker in year 1 of the LTP. So we'd like to move that. If there's no questions, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Brown. Debate. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. 11. The council approves the funding of 25,000 per annum across years 1 to 10 of the LT long-term plan for the Methven swimming pool as part of the Methven Community Board rate. Questions? Liz?
Thank you, through the chair. This will be inflated going through.
Yes, it will.
It hasn't in other years, has it?
Thank you, through the chair. I suppose I just made that statement based on the assumption that all our grants in this long-term plan have been inflated throughout the 10 years, so I just assumed that would be the same. The Methven Community Board discretionary grant has been inflated across years 1 to 10 of this draft.
So you're Carolyn?
What will this take the community board rate up to?
Sorry, I don't have that on hand.
There was a good level of commitment from the Methven community towards this, so we're not high Ashburton crashing down on top of them. They've pushed it to us to give what they want. Is that the way I want to hear you would surmise it?
Through the chair, based on the submissions we received, yes, we had a few in support, and the Methven Community Board was a strong advocate of the proposal as well.
Carolyn?
I'd like to move that, please.
Any further questions, Councillor? Moved to Councillor Cameron, second to Councillor McMillan. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. 12. Council advises the Army Cadets that decisions are yet to be made on the future of the Portville buildings and that they will be advised as soon as a decision has been made by the Council in mid-2024. I'll move. Seconded. Councillor McMillan. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. The Council approves funding of $5,000 in year 1 of the long-term plan for the Ashburton Aviation Museum insurance costs. questions. This might not be what they were actually wanting, or was it? Councillor, good question.
Yeah, council was going to follow up. We didn't have a figure from the museum, I believe.
Have any further detail? Leanne?
Through the chair, I did ring and get an email from Owen confirming that it's currently 14,000 and he thinks it'll be 15 in the new year one of the LTP.
So the 5,000 was just a figure put forward by council, and do we match what they need, or thereabouts?
Let's go to questions, and that's the debate. Councillor Cameron, you have a question?
To the officer, through the chair. Did Owen mention that they would prefer it on the lease to you? On your phone call?
Through the chair, that was not my understanding, but my understanding was that he was looking for surety of the lease, that it wouldn't be treated in the future in any way as a commercial lease, and that he wouldn't be treated as a cash cow. I mentioned, I believe, at yesterday's meeting that we would look to be bringing a community-based lease to council once we've assumed the footprint of their space, because it is very separate, and we are hoping council will support it as a very separate community-based lease.
Can you help me understand what that means, a community-based lease?
Non-commercial, which at the moment it's not based on the commercial lease that we would do for, let's say, the hangars.
Okay.
And he also at the moment qualifies under the community-based remission for rates, and we want to be able to find a way to support this museum. And what I understood from my conversation from Owen, not from my phone call yesterday, but from an earlier conversation when he was here on site, that he wanted that confidence that should councils change, he would still have that, you know, a nice community-based lease with maybe a CPI or something built in.
Yeah, I had a telephone call. It was not time to discuss it. I'll wait to questions.
Say that again.
I'll wait till questions are finished, then I'll discuss it.
You want debate? Okay. This setting a precedent, paying the insurance on a building we don't own. That's a question. Have we done this? Are we doing this anywhere else?
Mr. Mayor, I think it sounds like it doesn't pay their insurance costs. It sounds like it's a contribution to the museum towards the burden of insurance that they are bearing. So I think rather than saying that we are paying insurance costs, we could perhaps just eliminate the words insurance costs and just approve it as a grant of $5,000 for their running costs. And then that's consistent with a sort of a grants philosophy as opposed to a precedent around insurance costs.
I'd like to amend that and add on to it that council...
We're question time.
Oh, okay. I didn't want the motion to be moved because I want to just put something out there. So when will I do that?
Just put it out there.
Okay. I understand that they want the assurances that their lease or their rent will be of a minimum amount because that impacts their funding externally.
Yeah,
so I think that's what we need to make sure, that we move a motion that reflects that desire.
You could do so, but I don't think it's necessary, Councillor, because you've just heard Leanne say that's exactly her approach, and it doesn't feel like there's anyone that's trying to make it a commercially based lease.
So we don't need to document that.
Well, you could if you wanted belts and braces, but that's the way we're approaching it now. Okay. So it feels where everyone's just agreeing with each other.
Okay. So one more question for the officer. When is this new community-based lease going to be enacted, please?
Through the chair, we're waiting on some more information. We need their footprint, and they're working on how much space they need of our land because they're extending their buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
If we had a arts, culture, heritage strategy, would this fall under that classification?
I wouldn't think so.
I don't think so. Okay. No.
I wouldn't personally see that it would be as wide as including this, but perhaps, yeah. I mean, it's a good question. Maybe it would. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't actually know now. I've started talking. Yeah, apologies.
Councillor Meikle.
Yeah, I understand with the lease, that makes their funders nervous, and I was wondering, I understand the lease is minimal, and the funders are nervous about council increasing that lease substantially over the next while. Is it possible to remove the lease?
No, we need some basis for that organisation to occupy council land. So there does need to be some formal arrangement to give them the comfort that they have a right to be there.
So there's no other way of them occupying that building other than leasing?
Potentially a licence to occupy, but it would still have terms and conditions, I would imagine.
But that doesn't have a charge, the terms to occupy.
Yes, it does. Through the chair, we can bring the lease to council to review the recommended rate.
That's what makes them nervous.
But I think what Leanne is suggesting is that you'll then be in control of whether you think it's too high or not. So it'll be a council call to say that yes, we agree that that lease is appropriate for the Aviation Museum. So you would have the control over the final outcome rather than being nervous.
Okay, thank you.
That's awesome.
Just to clarify why I asked that question, it was because how many other museums do we have in the district? I can think of a few myself. There's the Plains Museum, there's the Tractor Museum, there's some private tractor museums up country, and all these museums will look and go, you're going to pay my insurance. So that was why I was asking, would this be included in a strategy whereby you then understand what you're getting yourself in for? And I don't agree with the one-off, but I'm just saying it's more the bigger picture. That's what I was asking, would this be included in that sort of a strategy?
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. My question is, would it be better to ask for council to see and set the terms of lease on the Airport Aviation Museum rather than just give this ad hoc 5,000 that we pulled out of the air? Then we can set what that is, because by default this is doing the same thing. If we just make it for general use, they can put it to their lease if they want to, but I think it would be better if this council set the terms of those, or the rate of that lease, and we didn't bother with this 5,000, we just take that into account when we actually do that.
That would be possible. We were intending to bring the lease to you anyway, so that essentially you're saying let's not pay this and still get to review
the two
lease.
end up balancing out, in my view. If we give them 5 now, we'll take that into consideration when we do that lease. So why don't we just make the terms of lease look even better by keeping this in our brain when we do it?
Can we let this matter lie on the table until later in the meeting, which will be next Wednesday? And in that time, we'll have had an airport users meeting, and we can pose this to them and see if this is what they really want, or what do they really want.
Yes, I think through you, Mr. Mayor, it needs to be posed directly to the Aviation Museum, not the airport users.
Well,
It's a
some of them,
different group.
one and the same, yeah.
Yeah, some of the people are the same,
Same.
but the airport users aren't the group you would approach over this matter per se.
Yeah, I think we're getting Chinese whispers. Starting here and it's moving down through the chain, and it changes by the time it gets to this table. So having a direct conversation with this table and the airport users, the Aviation Museum, may clarify things for us.
I was going to move that we let it lie on the table then.
Second it. The Mayor seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried, thank you. We'll pick that one up later in the meeting. 14, the Council does not approve $10,000 funding in Year 1, the long-term plan for the Methven Community Board to develop a plan for the Birdsong Initiative project adjacent to the Garden of Harmony. Instead, Council suggests the Methven Community Board discretionary grant is allocated towards this. Councillor Willen?
I have a question through the chair. I know I was the one that brought up the discretionary fund yesterday, but should that be in a recommendation? It's up to the community board to decide on the discretionary fund. Should we be suggesting that it comes from there?
There may be an idea of of removing that bit when we get to the resolution. Councillor Wilson?
My question is, does the birdsong fit within as one of the goals of our newly released biodiversity strategy?
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely part of the broader goals of that strategy. But obviously the strategy currently doesn't include funding for this particular initiative.
So what I'm perhaps getting at is it is a place they would look for funding from, perhaps from the biodiversity department effectively, rather than just general, which would fit within our biodiversity strategy going forward effectively.
Through the chair, certainly the biodiversity officer has had many conversations and will continue to have conversations with the parties involved around the project, so hopefully there's in kind that can support as well.
Your recommendation there, did you want to shorten it?
Yes, I'll move that council does not approve 10,000 funding in year 1 of the LTP 24-23 for Methven Community Board to develop a plan for the Birdsong Initiative project adjacent to the Garden of Harmony. Full stop.
Second up. Councillor Wilson. Debate. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Carried. Councillor 15, Council approves funding $5,000 annually for the Upper Rangitata Gorge land care via the biodiversity grant. Annually, is that for 10 years being annually, is it, Tony?
Through the chair, yes it is, and I've got a typo on that one, I'm so sorry. That should be via the biodiversity cost centre, not grant.
Cost centre.
So then that would fall under the remit of Christian's work, rather than have it sitting as a part of that contestable funding causing confusion in the future.
Right. Councillor Cameron, question?
No, my question was your question.
Right. Mover. Councillor Ellis, Councillor Brown, moved and seconded.
With that amendment on it, Mr.
With that amendment, yeah. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried, thank you. 16, the council approves funding for the Methven lighting project from the Methven amenity rate at $5,000 per annum of operational expenditure in years 1 to 10 of the long-term plan, and capital expenditure of $51,000 in year 1, $55,000 in year 3, and $10,000 in year 4. Questions? Liz?
Thank you. Through the chair, so the Methven amenity rate is that 50% general rate. How does that work? Sorry, Tony.
Through the chair, yes, you are correct. So 50% general rate and 50% targeted on the Methven community.
Thank you. And just another question in this sheet here. So is it going? You've got it on here. So year 1 is 5,000. Year 2, 12,600. So is that? What does that mean? Because I think in here it says capital expenditure of 51,000 year 1. So is that CapEx? So it's a loan. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So that's why you see the figures as they are, rather than seeing them reflective of what the request was. So a loan's being raised in year 1, and that's being paid down, and then the loan's being raised again in year 3 and year 4. But operational is the direct rate impact.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. When would the lights be put up? When do the lights go up in the trees?
Through the chair, I'll have to go back to the application, sorry, into the submission directly. I don't have that off the top of my head.
I don't remember seeing that.
Who is organising the lights to go up in the trees? Is that council or is that Methven?
It was a community board thing. I mean, I've got the community board submission in here.
Because I have a very good memory, unaffected by the 80s, I can tell you that initially there was some uplighting, a group of trees. That was the initial year 1 spend around that.
Thank you. Russell?
Who are we approving the funding to? Who's going to administer this?
Tony?
Through the chair, I was of the understanding that was under the economic development team's role. was to work alongside the community with this project.
Carolyn?
It doesn't actually say in their in the Methven Community Board's submission, it just says that they support it, and it doesn't say who's going to do it.
Through the chair.
It's a lighting group,
It's
isn't it?
Gillian Hield, I think,
Yeah.
from memory. The submission can be found under her name, and that's got the details of all the different
Because they were
aspects
getting
of it.
capital, the initial money was to do that horizontal, put the light switches in under the pavements and stuff, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's being managed under the economic development arm of council, so they will keep a good eye on it. Council also.
How is the Ashburton town lights financed? The festive lights, or not, the ones that we've got here?
Through the chair, they run through the open spaces area. Funded through the urban amenity rate, so that's 50% GV general rate, 50% urban amenity rate on Ashburton.
Same basis. Mover, seconder for that recommendation. Councillor Cameron moved. Councillor Hooper seconded. Debate. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Scott Dunn, all. We must break now for a cup of tea. See you back in 15. Welcome back, everybody, and on to item number 12, general summary, long-term plan decisions. Mark. Tony Richard.
We're just updating something in the presentation, so just give us a second. And Neil will cover this one off.
Do you want to move it to the information?
We'll do it in parts, yeah. When we get to the stage, we'll do the 15 recommendations in 1, 2, 3 in parts. Move on to the first one, is it?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, can I just raise that there is actually a number 16 that's simple, and I'll explain it later. I just want to flag that now.
Okay, just remind me there's a 16 when I get to 16. Thank you. Number 1. Council approves aligning the total costs of the second Ashburton River Bridge to the Canterbury Regional Land Transport Plan project cost of 130 million. Questions? At the moment, we have in their long-term plan what figure? 113 million, is it?
Through the chair, yes. So currently our LTP, draft LTP is reflecting 113 million. The Canterbury Regional Land Transport Plan that has been submitted to government has 130 million. It's been inflated up. So for consistency, officers are suggesting that that is increased in our plan, but the dollar amount for council's contribution remains at 7.5 million.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. We are awaiting a decision from NZTA as to how much extra dollars we're going to get in year 1 of the long-term plan for their FAR contribution to our work. And that is annoying, I understand the process, having to wait to know that number. Would be wonderful if that number was known now. By the bridge and delaying that decision, can we line those times up? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and the answer is no. Okay. And local government has been advocating forever for those things to be lined up, and has had the same success every time it's raised. So we have a National Land Transport Program that is approved after councils are obliged to adopt their LTP.
and presumably locally we give feedback constantly to James Cagle and all that sort of stuff, and nothing happens.
Constantly, and nothing happens.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
Incredibly disappointing.
Very.
Just as an addition to that, it was identified in the GPS as something to look at and to align, so the government is working on that, I understand.
Recommendation number 1, Councillor Carroll.
I'd like to move that, please, if there's no further questions.
If you'd like to read it.
The council approves aligning the total cost of the second Ashburton River Bridge to the Canterbury Regional Land Transport Plan project cost of $130 million.
Councillor Cameron has moved, seconded.
I'll second.
Councillor McMillan seconded. Debate. All in favour, please say aye. Number 2. Council approves 7.5 million of funding for the second Ashburton River Bridge. Questions? To the best of our knowledge, that is what is required at this stage. Mover.
I'm just going to ask a question. Do they expect us, we've sat with a 7.5 million for a while now, would they expect us to put it up to like 10 million to say that we're serious about this? Or would they just swear we're not going to up here a bit of money?
I think the messages from the Minister are really clear. He expects the roading network in New Zealand to be funded within the envelope of the National Land Transport Plan. He expects the FAR rate to reflect the support from the government for that network. And as we've previously advised, there is risk that 7.5 million will not meet the government's expectations. Having said that, 10 million no more meets it than 7.5, and one of the reasons that Council has been waiting for the confirmation of the National Land Transport Program is to get clarity on the project in the planning, and to continue to say, from our point of view, our funding has not been resolved. We note that the now Prime Minister promised to turn the first sod on this bridge in the first term of the National Government. Equally, we've heard the Minister of Transport say he expects the overall transport fund to fund the roading network, and in fact there was some sort of press release from him to say the days of governments topping up projects outside of the National Land Transport Program have finished. So there is risk that this amount is sufficient, but certainly 10 million has no better value.
Yeah, I'm disappointed if we don't put it up because the public want that bridge. And
what do you put it up to?
Just, I would, put a little bit more value on it, rather than 7.5.
We'll put 7.6 then, but it makes no difference.
Yeah.
Phil.
Happy to move, there's no other questions.
Second it. Councillor Wilson. Phil Cooper moved, Councillor Wilson second. Open debate. Put the motion in favour, please say aye. Item number 3, Council approves an additional $500,000 of unsubsidised funding across years 1 to 10 for maintaining the unsealed roading network. Questions? Councillor Wilson.
As the perhaps proponent of this, Neil, could you explain to us, in the activity statement we put out for consultation, we had some numbers in there around the amount of resealed kilometres or percentage it was, and some tonnes of shingle on the roads. And are we going to be able to attain them with the funding that we've put aside or we've applied for?
Yeah, our roading manager did state that ideally he would have requested 1.7 million for gravel roads maintenance, but that would have been in an ideal world, and we had to reduce his application for the transport fund to down to 1.2 million for gravel roads and across the whole network. So we ideally would have liked a 55% increase on our previous subsidy, and we went for a 23% increase. So effectively that means that there is less available. So in terms of gravel roads, unsealed roads, that is a shortfall of about 500,000 if we were to meet the current level of service.
And if we were to find some money, some extra money, we've proposed perhaps here that an unsubsidised funding over, it says 1 to 10, so it's every year. What risk is there that we put the money in and then over time it gets the more high profile roads end up getting that money and the shingle roads miss out? Can we sort of log that in, or how do we keep that if we're going to do this? How do we keep that in play?
Well, this money being unsubsidised will be clearly allocated to only unsealed roads, so it wouldn't be used for anything else.
Just have a question. It's on the graph, Ashburton Residential. The consultation document line, the increase for Ashburton Residential will be 10.06. Yep. And it will go to 11.02 if we put that 500 in. Yep. And the rural is from 2.07 to 3. Yep. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Further to Richard's conversation, Neil, did the roading manager go to NZTA with the 53% or the 55%, or did they have a conversation to knock it down to 23 before it went through the portal, if you like?
No, it was prepared. We looked at the cost and what the impact it would have on us and us having to come up with the 49%, and it was deemed unacceptable for us to request that, and very unlikely that we would get such an amount from NZTA anyway.
Based on your experience.
And other councils as well. We also heard that we'd be very lucky if we got 25 or 30% at all, So we were being realistic and doing the best with what we could,
Yes.
and with what we believe we could afford.
So how many fewer kilometres will have the metal, the shingle, this unsealed, how many fewer unsealed roads will be shingled to the desired level with that extra 500,000? The loss of the 500.
You're talking about sealed roads?
Unsealed.
Unsealed roads.
Like how many more can we do with an extra 500,000?
Oh, I can't remember that figure. Don't know how many kilometres. I can't remember. I'd have
suppose
to
it
let you know.
depends on the quality condition of the.
It depends on the widths. How many kilometres.
Okay.
Just further to Neil's explanation, remember that a 58% lift in the roading budget, if it was approved, would require a 58% lift in the council share of roading, which would then be borne by the ratepayers. So there was never a doubt in our mind as we were preparing the draft LTP that that was you just simply couldn't bear that cost in the community, and because you wouldn't have the certainty of that being approved, you'd be striking a rate to increase to that level, and then when the subsidy got approved, you would be more likely to get perhaps the 25% lift in the program, and you'd now have this massive unsubsidised roading program that you had rated for, and you're expecting your community to pay. So clearly, it's in everyone's interests to align the conversations and to try and best estimate an accurate reflection of what you're likely to get, rather than just requesting a dramatic lift on a wish list and then wait to get knocked back, because in the meantime you've struck a rate for it.
Yeah,
and your community's going to be paying the money. So that's why we didn't request 58% from Waka-Kotahi in the end. We were looking to have a realistic approach to what we might achieve based on all the affordability, the available money, and the needs of the network.
Yeah, I understand that. Is there any savings that can be made and money diverted to the shingle roads in the current budget?
If there's any movement within the current budget, it would just take money off somewhere else. So it would just impact in another area.
And you would need time to identify those areas of where you take money off?
Yeah, well, across the whole network, we'd be reluctant to take anything off. But, we could look at taking off footpaths or other areas.
Just a question, Mike, for you, Hamish or Neil. The 25% increase for the regional land transport plan, it's over 3 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't adjust each year, so that's 8% a year, correct? Can I analyse it like that?
Well, it's a 25% lift over the previous 3 years.
Yes.
But it is spread over 3 years.
So it's 8% a year lift,
Oh,
if you put it over 3 years. Can you analyse it like that?
I'm not sure. I think you're better to think of it as a 25% lift over 3 years compared to the previous 3 years.
Yeah, it's a 3-year program. This is a 25% lift on the previous 3-year program.
Okay, now let's look at our rates. Our long-term plan, over 3 years, we lift 30%. Right?
Yes.
So I'm looking at the regional land transport plan, you're only lifting 25%, which is lower than what we're lifting. Is that correct? And am I comparing apples with apples here?
Well, what we're all doing is our best estimate ahead of the National Land Transport Plan being approved. If our first year estimate is not exactly 1/3, then we will adjust it in years 2 and 3, so that across the 3 years it will exactly comply with the money granted.
And if we'd gone for the 48%, that's 15% a year, which is more in line with slightly more than what we're increasing. And the inflation on roading over the last 2 to 3 years has been huge.
Indeed. And I think that's the issue when you talk about the unsealed roads, is you could spend more money on the entire network. So when the entire network, and we've heard this number of a 58%, you could justify a 58% lift in resource going towards roading. It's not easy to find the place in that roading budget to swap money across into one section and the other. All you do is exacerbate the sealed road maintenance or the footpath repairs or whatever else that you're rejigging the money in order to support the metal roads.
We've also looked at ways of sort of front-loading the work and the amount of work we do in the first year or two before inflation increases. So, we'll look at ways that we can get the most out of that money in those 3 years.
Liz?
Thank you. The Mayor mentioned that all these examples here, 1% increase, and Ashburton residential looks like about $25, rural is about 80. Will that be sort of, the 1% be consistent throughout the district? Or am I jumping the gun? You've got 2 examples up there.
Thank you, through the chair. So the way in which the roading rate is allocated is effectively like a general rate, so it's based on the capital value of your property. So it'll be consistent in that regard across the property, across the district, depending on the value of your property. I just want to point out, this is just modelling what the roading component of a rate increase is. It's not pulling in everything else, it's strictly roading, that's all we had time for.
Richard?
Thank you. Can you explain to me why then, if we're going to put some money into roading, why has it affected the UAGC and why has it affected the general rate? Because I look at those 2 numbers there and I see a big increase for urban and nearly a smaller increase dollar-wise for rural, but that doesn't sort of make sense when when rural pay a lot more of the roading rate.
Through the chair, I will defer to my learned accounting friends, but as I understand it, it's to do with the contributors flowing into the different pots of the rating that council has. Leanne, it's probably more cool.
That is correct. So we've used our dividends and contributors as requested, and it goes through UAGC, general rate and roading rate.
The why has general rate gone up? I thought we would have. Is it like a tumbling down? Is that the way to describe it? So it goes into the UAGC to bring it down to 30%, and then if we've got it's investments we're talking about, the funds then go into the general rate, and do they not just keep going in there until it gets to 0 effectively, and then they would go into roading, or how do those 2 mechanisms differ?
No, not quite. So yes, we have to bring the UAGC down to 30%. That's our first driver. Must be done. And then after that, we put it between general and roading, I believe.
You're confident those figures are correct? Because I'm seeing the roading rate with the consultation document, long-term plan, and the plus 500, the roading rate has actually dropped, but the UAGC has actually risen. You're confident these figures are correct, and it's the contributor that's doing it?
I'm confident that our UAGC is correct. That's what we consulted on. That hasn't had an impact on what we've done so far. I'm not sure what has happened since then, and I'd need to look at Erin, so I'm not sure what she's plugged into this. I don't know if that's after the conversation the other day.
Do you want to ask a question, Russell?
Erin, if you could explain that, please, if you can.
Yeah, sure, through the Mayor. So what happens is, because we had to take a third of the interest and dividends and put it against the roading rate as we were requested, that contributor came off the general rate and gets put on the roading rate, so the general rate increases and the roading rate decreases.
So why did the UAGC rise by putting 500k into roading?
It was to do with the proportions. There was a couple of little levers we had to jiggle to get that right.
Councillor Wilson?
A question on, you said, requested. We've never requested where it goes. I thought there was none going into the roading rate initially, and then it was going all into the general rate and the UAGC, is it?
No, we were requested to move it in line with the policy after a meeting or a workshop that we had at an earlier date before.
Which policy was that one?
It's in the rating and funding policy.
I'm unaware of
Revenue and
that.
financing, sorry.
Yeah. Russell?
Is it correct that talking 500,000 here is a little bit misleading for this LTP? We're actually talking 6.5 million for this LTP over the 10 years. And that's not loan funded, it's directly rated. And we've already turned down other projects we said we couldn't afford that were loan funded that had far less implication than this one does. So we're not talking 500,000 for this LTP, we're talking $6 to $6.5 million. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. This was trying to show the impact on year 1 in this case, but yes, of course, it does flow through to years 2 to 10.
You could, if you wished, just make it years 1, 2 and 3 and it gets addressed again at the next long-term plan. If you wished. Councillor Cameron?
Look, we don't actually even know that that's the case because we haven't heard back from NZTA. So they could say you can have 15% rather than 23%. Through the chair.
This money is unsubsidised.
Yeah. I'm not talking. I'm just going back to Russell's comment about the 6 million.
I don't understand the maths there, Councillor, but you're right. The the National Land Program, National Land Transport Program will be confirmed in August, so we don't know what we're going to get. This, however, is outside that. The request that we understand from the workshop is $500,000 a year for 10 years as unsubsidised roading, and it's been particularly tagged for increased maintenance on the unsealed roads, which carry 5% of the traffic in the district.
That's awesome.
Can we have more, because this, in my simple maths was 500,000 and affected the roading rate, and that affected urban residents by a very small amount because they don't pay a huge roading rate, and the rural residents by a larger amount, which I thought would work out, the rural people get better benefit. But I understand that it's affecting the UAGC, but the only one I'm very unsure of how the dividends being put against the roading rate has perhaps distorted this more than what I would have thought of. So could we see the policy perhaps just further understand it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if there's uncertainty as to how we've got to where we've got to, and then I would suggest one way of dealing with that is, as you have with other matters where you need further information, this could be a matter you defer for resolution until the end of the meeting on Wednesday.
Councillor?
That's why I put my light on. I was going to move that this light's on the table.
Seconder. Councillor Wilson? Put the motion on favour, please say aye. Carried. Lays on the table until later in the meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Because we've been meeting for more than 6 hours, I've just been informed that standing orders don't allow us to meet for more than 6 hours. We need a resolution to move away from standing orders so we can carry on. Someone like to move that we do that?
I would like to move that.
It's councillor Cameron, second it. Had 9 lights on. We're looking for a seconder. Councillor Hooper. All those in favour, please say aye. Yeah, we'll carry on with the meeting. Number 4, waste reduction and recovery. Council includes 75,000 year 2 for the investigation of alternative sites for the meth and recovery park, funded through the solid waste management activity. Questions? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. If we do not have this money in this budget, then that activity cannot proceed. That's correct?
Then we can't undertake the investigation to find a suitable location. Yep.
Yeah, I support this.
Motion there, so I'd like to move it.
I'd
Councillor
like to
Cameron.
move it.
Second it.
I'll second.
The debate. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'm in favour of it because we talk about climate change policy and all this sort of stuff, and this is compacting better to put less rubbish on the, less trips to Cape Valley and all that sort of thing. So it's just part of our strategy going forward. And if we don't keep doing it, we're stopping that progress.
I'll speak in support. This was a part of the Methven Community Board submission, and I think there was some work done on it in the past, so it would be good to have it in the LTP so that we can look at it going forward.
Moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Number 5, council does not bring forward to year 1 the Lakewood Public Convenience Project in year 10 of the long-term plan at a cost of 1.4 million. Questions? Councillor McDonald.
What year was this initially in the long-term plan for?
Through the chair, it's in year 10 at 1.4 million. And
Year 10?
Yes, year 10, and the request from the submitter was to bring it forward to year 1.
Yeah, I thought it was year 2, but that's that.
It's in year, it's in year 10 and
Year 10. Happy with you.
The grandeur of these toilets, this never been discussed with council, and should it be? 1.4 million for some toilets to get used occasionally at Lakewood is quite an expense, I'd have thought. I'm looking at the toilets at Rakaia, which are the second most used toilets in the district, and we spent 600,000 on them, I think. $1.4 million for toilets at Lakewood that don't get used that often, I don't think is appropriate. It is in year 10, I know, but year 10 will soon come around. I think we need to cut our cloth. Councillor.
Thank you, and you've talked about this danger before of something being in the LTP a few years out, then the assumption's made we're just doing it, so we then don't get to see the business case as it gets closer, and it just happens. So I think that's something we need to be aware of as we do these LTPs. What's in year 4 of this one, we just need to keep a close eye on when it comes around and those sorts of things.
Yeah, if the business case was done for year 4, then the business case will move into year 1 3 years later and be reproduced and updated. Yeah, they need to come through. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, over time, it's a question. Over time, we've done a lot of toilets in the last few years. We have some of the best toilets in the country, you could almost say now. When do you get to the point where you've at max toilet, realistically?
I don't think there's ever a magical point where we hit max toilet. We will continue to respond to the needs as being expressed to us in our own observations throughout forever. I'd say we never get to that point.
If I can just respond to the difference between the Rakaia toilet and this toilet involves a lot of water and wastewater pipelines and services. I think that contributes to quite a bit of extra cost.
Councillor Lloyd?
Can I just ask where on Lake Hood, were they going down the beach end or where?
Well, they're not going anywhere yet
This
until year
is-
10, but it was down the northern...
Towards the beach
northern
end, yes.
The northern end of the...
The northern
of the
end.
lake, near the intake.
Yes.
Because I know on busy weekends there is queues at the decent toilets there in the summer round the lake, and they are not pleasant. And I think we should be looking at, putting this to about year 5 or 6, monitoring what's going on down there, because you don't want people using the bushes.
Yeah, I think the decision was to not replace those smaller ones that are around the edge. I think there's 2, and to rather have put one decent one further up north. I think that was the intention when they did the calculation.
I think we need to look at it, not in about 3 years' time, because that place is used by a lot of people, and we need to monitor the situation down there.
I need to look at the funding, the way it's funded then. The recommendation is that it does not bring forward to year 1.
I had a question.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, actually, comment. No, wait.
I'll get a mover and a seconder now, unless you want to still a question.
Happy to move.
Councillor
Second
Hooper.
that.
Councillor Cameron, debate.
I think the recommendation, even from the submitters, was that it's needed at busy periods, I think was what, if I recall correctly. It's not an everyday requirement. It's needed at busy periods. So we need to assess how many busy periods they are and what the usage is. Because I think they're currently, and I think it was also said that you alluded to, Lynette, that people don't like going to the Portaloos or the other, when they come up for the regattas and things. So that was why we were asked to invest $1.4 million in public facilities. That was my understanding of it. So I don't know that there's an urgency on a day-to-day basis for those toilets.
Councillor Hooper?
Yeah, I agree. I regularly bike around the lake and don't see queues, and if there's an event on, it's up to them to put on portaloos. If people don't want to use portaloos, well, where does that stop for us? Every event, people don't want to use portaloos, so we have to put in toilet blocks? Don't think so.
Councillor Wilson?
Probably lose what I meant before was that it's time for us to have a look at how good a level of service we do with these toilets, because we've done a lot of the areas and sometimes there's a need, but it's easy to see a need. What we need to say is that need high enough need for us to do it, because they're massively expensive.
Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Carried. Democracy, that council includes $20,000 additional funding in the Strategy and Policy Cost Centre in year 2 for the development of an arts, culture and heritage strategy. Questions? This is business as usual, so why are we putting extra monies into this area? This is business as usual.
Through the chair, there's an aspect that's business as usual, but also when we do plan our work and our year's program out based on whatever the needs are. So this is actually an extra project that's coming into year 2 that we weren't anticipating. We could try and cut our cloth and meet it from within existing budget. However, I can't guarantee that we'll be able to cover it all off as completely as what we could do if we had the money to available to do the right engagement and get the right information that we need.
Or something else may have to slip down the list if this pops in.
Potentially, yes, but council has to understand that we can't do everything at every whim.
Yeah. Questions? Question? No? You would like to move?
I'd love to move this, please.
Second it? Councillor
I'll second.
Debate. Well, Councillor.
Yep, I've just been reading the Upper Hutt one, and it's a good idea to have one, I think, because it leads to, when you make other decisions, you've got a strategy behind you to lean on, as it was. And we've seen that with some of our heritage projects and our different things we do in the district. We just need to have something behind us rather than plucking things out of the air when we feel like it.
I'm going to vote against. I'm not putting any extra money in. It's business as usual. And we need to reorder the policies that we're updating. And if you need assistance with that, we can help and see what we think is a priority and what is not. my view. Councillor Cameron.
If you vote against, what does that mean for this thing in the long-term plan?
It'll just become business as usual.
So it will
It'll
still
be
be there?
in year 2. I'm voting against it plus $20,000.
Okay, but you're not voting against the development of an arts, culture and heritage strategy.
With the greatest of respect, I think unless there's something different has moved, you are. Because it's not currently in our work plan. It isn't happening in year 2 unless you add it. So you have to add it either with resource or not. But we aren't in the process currently of developing this plan because we're responding to council's previous decision, which was not to prepare such a strategy.
Yeah.
So if it's to be prepared, we need a
100% correct. I'll be seeking a little bit of, if I've got support, and if there's support around the table for removing the 20,000 but leaving the strategy in, I'll move an amendment.
Okay, so I'll wait and see this because I would support that as well.
No, just I'll move an amendment that we don't include $20,000 additional funding, but we still develop in year 2 the arts, culture and heritage strategy. Is an amendment. The seconder, Councillor Brown.
Yep.
Debate. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. That amendment now becomes the motion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Take 20 out. Number 7, the council changes the funding mechanism for the Methven Strategic Plan 20,000 development in year 1 of the long-term plan for the Methven Community Board Cost Centre to the cost centre so it becomes funded via the UAGC instead of a Methven targeted rate. Councillor Cameron, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I was doing a little bit of research last night on the arts, culture and heritage strategy, I came across a whole lot of sites that had strategies for each of their satellite centres, you know, like, is that common to, how do they fund those, do you know? Out of that little centre targeted rate or out of the whole, or is it varied?
Through the chair, in the past when council has had specific strategic plans for each of its little communities, it has been funded across the board, sort of out of the, like a general rate or equivalent.
So this motion is just making it consistent with the rest of the district, essentially, what we've done in the past.
Well, to be fair, council directed us several years ago not to continue doing those strategic plans for our smaller communities, so we haven't been doing them and they're not part of our work program at this stage. But this one has come in and it's been well discussed with the Methven Community Board and on their radar. So it is consistent with how we've done it historically. We're talking 10 years ago plus.
Thank you.
Councillor McMillan.
And through the chair, so this is going to be done in-house. I know it's been requested before and the cost was too high, so Community Board said they didn't want to do it at that time, but now is it going to be done in-house, which is why it's a little bit cheaper?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Just, it's my non-knowledge. A strategic plan, what does that cover when you do one of a small town like that?
Through the chair, in the past, it normally involves a series of workshops with the community, often looking at what their aspirations might be, what they'd like their town to look like in 10, 15, 20 years. And then we actually work backwards from there and actually see who's doing what, take a bit of a stock take around where the good things are happening, where there's opportunities for improvement, where there's some weaknesses in what's happening within the town, and then you build the plan upwards from there once you've got all that, that range of views.
And I guess in addition to that, it's also, you know, it's not just about the services that council provide, it's about the whole range of services for that community, what they need in the future. So that's sort of a coordination exercise as well with different providers and agencies within that area to get direction for that particular community.
No further questions. Is there a move and a seconder?
I'd like to move that, please.
Councillor Cameron moved.
I'll second that.
Councillor Wilson seconded. Any debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Additionally, I'd also like to welcome the member of public who's taken the time to come along and listen to our council meeting today. Welcome. I hope you get a lot of enjoyment out of what you're listening to.
Doesn't appear to be, Mr. Mayor.
Next one, reserve board and halls. 8 and 9, we take them together. Happy to do that. The council reduces the budget for the Methven Reserve Board mowing costs to $20,000 from years 1 to 10, and council reduces the budget for the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall salary and wages by $20,000 from years 1 to 10. Questions? Move and second it.
I'd like to move.
Councillor McMillan. Move.
Second.
Councillor Hooper, second. Debate. Put the motion all in favour, please say aye. Carried. District promotion. Council provides $25,000 in year 1 for investigation of the district biking trail funded from the district promotion activity. Questions? Mover.
Happy to move.
Councillor Hooper, seconder. Councillor Todd. Debate. Put the motion all in favour, please say aye. Open spaces. The council includes additional funding of $26,000 to cover 0.3 FTE for cleaning of public conveniences. Questions? Councillor Wilson.
How many full-time employment people does the open spaces have?
I can check for 100% confirmation. I think off the top of my head it's about 36, and that includes the district caretakers as well.
Could this be absorbed within the current structure that we have?
What has been missed was an allowance for the cleaning the Digby Park toilets, which was funded through the Better Off funding, so it wasn't planned expenditure. So that's one component. Another component was in 2020 when there were changes at the Tynwald Reserve Board in terms of the holiday park, and the contractor no longer does the caretaking duties. Open Spaces picked up those duties and haven't kind of been funded per se for it. And this is a fix because it's the first time that, since that round has happened, the budget's the first time that we've set it since then. So that's the other thing that we're trying to address.
Councillor Wilson.
Probably my question is, can it be absorbed? Because obviously that we are in the time at the moment of absorbing costs. That's what this government's talking about, absorbing costs and trimming and shifting and titterising around as it was. So could that be done here? Because it would be a small savings on a big budget, because it's Open Spaces budget is how much? 4 million, I think, isn't it?
Through Mr. We're currently incurring this cost. We felt it better to correct the anomaly, and if this isn't approved, we will still have to spend this money. And essentially, you're asking us to not do $26,000 worth of work somewhere else, which is not our request. Our request is to have the budget accurately reflect the work that's being done.
I think I might have mentioned at the start of the long-term plan process, if they're not in the budget, it's not in the budget, you can't bring it to us later. Here might be one of them. And it'll have to be absorbed. Budgets need to be accurate and so forth, and if it's missed, it's missed, and there'll be a lawn somewhere that doesn't get mowed if this is absorbed, or the grass will be another centimetre higher until it might miss 1 or 2 mowings perhaps, but up to you to decide.
And we are trying to get the budget correct by bringing this to you, yeah.
Motion there. The motion can be changed. Councillor Brown.
I'm quite happy to move just this.
Seconder. Could lapse for lack of a seconder. So we have a new motion, which is the reverse. The council does not include funding of $26,000 to cover the 0.3 FTE of cleaning public toilets. I'm happy to move. Seconder. Councillor Brown, Councillor Wilson. Now it's over for debate.
Could I just seek clarification? Does that mean that council is happy those toilets aren't cleaned?
No.
Is that the impact?
No, I think what the impact would be is you need to find those dollars in your budget and something else won't get done. The toilets need to be cleaned, but there's 26 staff there or whatever it was. Need to work it out.
Okay, so you're asking staff to decide what won't get done that you might otherwise expect to be done somewhere across the open spaces budget?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's what we wish. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, that's what we have no control because that's your job to manage that. So I'm just saying that it's a wee budget squeeze we're putting in the open spaces. Maybe there is, I don't know where the places are because we don't have control over it.
Councillor Oliver.
I'm just going to ask, does this mean there'll be less cleaning of toilets on a regular basis? Some are going to be left.
Could easily be. It might well be that there'll be a toilet somewhere that won't get cleaned as often, or as I understand, what you're asking us is to go and decide where not to spend 26 grand, and no doubt that'll be something not done somewhere else, which could be a toilet somewhere else. It could be one of these toilets. It could be lawns not. There could be a range of things that you're now charging us to go and not do at our discretion to soak up this money.
Yep. It could be a few trees less planted. It could be one less more lawn mowing somewhere. It could be many things that doesn't.
Staff won't be cleaning toilets. You'll give a special.
Hang on, we can't hear what you're saying.
Thank you. Toilets should be at the top of the list to be taken care of in the district. If there's a couple of less trees to be planted, then so be it. But keep those toilets clean.
Yes, but you're charging us to soak it up, so I'm not. You know, we'll now make that call, I guess, with the $26,000 less that we haven't got.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. And the way I read this recommendation, you will have staff who are dedicated to cleaning toilets, and if those staff now, for 0.3 of a full-time equivalent, can't clean toilets, somewhere there will be a lower level of service in our toilet cleaning, is the way I read that. It won't be a swap out for tree planting, because the tree planters don't clean toilets.
If you wished and you wanted us to give you guidance, you could bring a list of things that wouldn't be done if you wanted. I don't think we're requesting it though. Councillor? No. Motion there, moved and seconded. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? 1, 2, 3 against. Carried. Recorded against? Okay. 12, EA Network Centre, that council, are some of these we can take all together, or you think they 12, 13, 14, 15? No, we'll certainly leave 15 off. No, we'll do them one by one. Let me read them. Yeah. Council extends the opening hours of EA Network Centre and offers bespoke swimming sessions as required within the existing funding of $25,000, resulting in a $9,000 savings in years 10 of the EA Network Centre budget. Questions? Sarah?
I was just going to comment with regards to number 12. We put forward as part of the business case in the Dragon's Den approach to have this money put in. Well, we included it in the budget, and during that process it actually wasn't taken out. So when we have raised the issue, it got raised yesterday, we looked again and found it was already in. So what we're saying is if you approve this increase, there'll be $9,000 off the current salary and wages figure in EA Network Centre. If you don't approve this and you say no extra hours, no bespoke swimming, there will be $36,000 off the current budget. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
We've got it by omission of removing it previously. Apologies for that.
And just to add to that, there is actually a typo in the recommendation. It should state years 1 to 10.
Good.
Thank you. Questions, councillors?
I have a question
Yes,
through
yeah.
the chair. So bespoke swimming sessions, is that the women's only session, or what do you mean by that?
It is, that's the intention, but I guess we want to ensure that any bespoke swimming sessions are broad and available to different groups of the community. You may be aware that some councils have recently had quite a bit of conflict with regards to rainbow story time. There's councils that are having concerns raised with them about their facilities not meeting the transgender community, etc. So we've just we've got to be careful and inclusive, and ensure any additional activities that we offer are inclusive to the best we can to meet the needs of the groups.
Thank you.
Caroline.
We were discussing the submitter the other day who submitted about not being able to use a spa pool and go swimming later on after work. Is this in response to that? So we don't. How many nights extra hour? How many extra hours was in that? Because we didn't put a finger on it. We just had that loose.
Richard?
Through the chair, we're proposing through this to do 2 weeknights and 2 weekends, yet to be determined exactly
Two
which
weekend
days.
nights. Does a weekend night cost you more from a labour perspective?
No, we did a calculation yesterday. A weekend night actually costs less than a weeknight, but I could dive deep and deep into rosters there.
No, don't. I just. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
A mover? Councillor Ellis, want to move?
Yes, I will move.
Councillor Macmillan,
second,
seconded.
thank you.
Debate. Put the motion on, in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Item 13, the council alters the EA Network Centre membership structure to a wet-dry membership effective July 1st, 24. Questions? Caroline?
Thank you. The motivation behind this was easier for the staff to manage and the team at the EA Network Centre to manage, and also to offer a larger offering to potential clients. Is that correct?
Yes, those are 2 key reasons. Another reason that is, I guess, one of our core motivations is the current system doesn't align very well with the security and access of the facility. So potentially there could be people paying for one membership and getting a different level of service, and we would be unaware.
Okay, so it's more security. Because when you go into the gym, they can see your face on the TV, can't they? Yeah.
The
On
gym
screen.
has a different level than the pool, for example.
Oh, I
Yes.
see. Okay, may I ask one more question, please? So you surveyed, we've gone out and surveyed the long-term plan and got good responses. Have you surveyed members at the gym as well?
Those were the memo that was brought forward
okay,
was
yeah, I saw that.
100, the 77 responses were completely from the members. We went out directly to all members with the information and got that direct
That's right.
feedback.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a good idea.
Questions?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, Phil. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Was there a facility-wide membership available as well as the wet and dry?
Correct. Where we've referenced the wet dry, we're actually referencing a 2-tier system as opposed to the 3-tier system. So you'll be able to, if this passes, be able to choose a wet or a dry or a facility-wide option.
Thank you.
We may want that wording just changed to a 2-tier system so that it's we've just got to make sure facility-wide is still an offering. That's what we're trying to say, as well as wet or dry.
Right, but then the fees and charges, it'll be more specific.
Yep.
Very
Oh, perfect. Yep. No problems.
Thank you. Mover? Councillor Hooper, seconded Councillor Ellis. For debate. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried, thank you. Item 14, the council introduces the swim squad fee increase from 1st of January 25. There's been a little bit of discussion with some councillors around the swim squad. Hamish, could you just give us a wee update how you've got on?
Yes, just briefly, we remain in conversation essentially with the swim squad as to where their fees are heading in the medium term. This recommended increase from 1 January is to correct an anomaly that we had previously discussed with council, and bringing it in on 1 January, because even the correction of that anomaly is a relatively significant increase. And then we continue to discuss what we believe needs to be a further adjustment, but with a wider group than we have been negotiating with currently, so the whole swim squad rather than just the competitive group, swim club. And if that concludes through the course of this next period, we would expect to introduce a changed fee structure again from 1 July 2025. So this is an interim step towards a solution. So we remain in conversation over the bigger picture, but this is an interim step and then a further one potentially from 1 July 25.
Okay, questions? Move in a second. Councillor Wilson moved. Councillor Brown seconded. New debate. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Item 15, the Council directs officers to report back to Council in the early part of 24-25 a mini golf concept proposal funded from the reserve contribution account with a value of up to 400,000. Says I read it. Questions for councillors?
So this sum of money here hasn't been put into our summary of changes?
Thank you. Through the chair, no, it hasn't, because the intention is for this to be funded from the reserve contribution account, so it is nil impact on rates.
And have we got balance on that account?
Yes, I asked our finance manager, and she said as of July last year, I believe, so that would have been the annual report, there was 7 million.
7 million. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Does this need to be discussed in the 30-year EANC plan as well, or can we just move this now and it'll be automatically put into that?
It's already, the EA master plan already has a space allocation for mini golf, and I think that's how the idea was sparked in terms of feedback. So we will include that with further thinking, and whether our space allocation is sufficient or not. There might be some tweaks in terms of the size of the square box at the moment, but we'll work on that.
Whereabouts was it? I can't quite remember where it was.
At the moment, it's under I'm going to say the base of the hill on the left-hand side of the new steps. Yes, that sort of area.
So, okay.
You will see that in the master plan.
And just to note, as we said at the beginning of this process, if the long-term plan approves something for the EA Network Centre, it automatically goes in the master plan and isn't up for further consideration. And that detail obviously needs further development, but it's not up now to the master plan process to throw out, for example, the idea of mini golf, because it's now resourced inside the long-term plan. So it would essentially be in if you approve this.
Richard, you haven't had a lot of time to do a lot of work on this, but what does, say, up to 400,000 get you in mini golf?
Through the chair, we did do a quick desktop analysis, and it's how long is a piece of string. The one example that was brought by a submitter of the Kerry mini golf course, which is quite an elaborate course with lots of bits and bobs going on, was around $500,000. So we're not envisaging something necessarily to the extent of that, but somewhere between 300 and 400,000 would get you a pretty good mini golf course. Should
be adequate, and it'll be obviously because it'll be in the open all the time, not controlled, because it won't be a chargeable course. It needs to be sturdy to stand up to the rigours of someone's not supervising it.
The way mini golf usually works is you would usually hire the clubs and a golf ball from the EA Network Centre, and the last hole swallows your ball. So you can't endlessly play, and that's how you have a charging regime. I don't think I've experienced a mini golf course that doesn't do that. That they may exist. There may be completely free ones around, but generally you would hire the clubs and a ball, and the last hole swallows the ball.
We can work through that,
yeah.
And if you want a game of mini golf when unless you've got fences around it, when it's not open, you'd bring your own club and your own ball, and you would. Yeah. Questions? Richard.
The reserve, it's probably more about you said 7 million in reserve contributions account. Many people would say, gee, 7 million we can spend. But what can can you just where does it come from, or where can we spend it? Because
Yes, so Erin is in the background, but it says reserve contributions reserved. This reserve is funded from financial contributions levied on subdivisions under the RMA Act. Its use is governed by the Act, which is the RMA Act.
And in our district plan, there are quite specific rules that are specified there as well.
And just to clarify, that money is currently sitting in our bank account, offsetting our debt. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So when we spend it, our debt goes up accordingly.
If we spent it all.
Or we have less invested.
Yeah, nice debating. We'll move into that shortly. There were questions. There's a motion there that council directs officers, I've read it before, to set up the mini golf. I'll move.
Can I second that, please, Neil?
To speak to it, I raised this the other day because I've seen it in the master plan. I thought that's a good idea. We're not doing anything major big in this first 3 years long-term plan. This is a good cheap win to give another something to the people of the district, and we here in the long-term plan submissions, the youth of the district don't have much to do. This will give the youth of the district something to do. They may wish to do it, they may not. We've done mini golf, very cheap to put in. Not mini golf, disc golf, and very cheap to put in, but major impact. I see this as another aspect to that, so hence is why I raised it. And we come from the reserve contributions account, which has $7 million in it. Every subdivision that's done, the subdivider has to pay into this account for recreational purposes. This fits the bill. Yes, we can put some swings and slides in playgrounds, and we do. Here's something slightly different to cater to a different part of the community. I think we use some of this money to put the disc golf in Tynwald, but this is the purpose of it. So, debate. Sold.
I talk in favour too. I think it's good. It's been talked about in our community for yonks, and hey, if it gets some kids off couches and away from screens, that's a good thing, eh?
Councillor Ellis? No, Councillor McMillan.
Maybe me. Thank you. I speak in support, and I know that we're saying it's a good activity for youth, but it's actually a really good activity for families, and I think it's a great. It will be a great asset once it's built.
Yeah, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Also in favour, just a little query on the impact of car parking, and because part of the master plan was extra car parking, we're doing this first and losing some, so no, cool, excellent.
And there is overflow car parking there now in a fashion. Yep. Seems adequate at the moment, so put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Carried. Oh, and there was 16, there was, yes.
And I believe
16.
Tony's got a 17 as well, so extra lucky.
You got 5 minutes.
Okay, so number 16, sorry. This is just a project rejig. Of late, we have identified that the scoreboards within the stadium, which were scheduled for replacement in year 4, 100k in year 4, have become more temperamental than we had anticipated, and we would, if possible, ask that that project was brought forward to year 1 so that we can fix and replace the existing 4 scoreboards in the stadium, and we believe that would be at 90,000 as opposed to 100,000 in year 4. So, yeah, brought forward and slightly reduced in terms of cost.
What's the scoreboard used for?
Every sport that, plays on the courts.
Use the same scoreboard for basketball as in volleyball as with...
Yes, that's correct. Every sport, basketball, volleyball, netball, pickleball, futsal, they all use the same scoreboard on each court. Each court has its own individual scoreboard.
They've all given up, all giving up.
They are reaching end of life and showing very strong signs of being temperamental, yes.
Phil.
I was just going to ask about them, if you could explain temperamental, because I've watched my lovely wife play netball there a few times and haven't noticed. So.
Through the chair, it's very lucky that you haven't noticed. Some of the things we're noticing are lag times, so the time ticking over will actually start to slow down, scores not coming on at times, and that can be quite impactful to games when they are getting quite serious or really into it. And that they are simply reaching some of those end of life, cannot be replaced, cannot be repaired. The parts cannot be replaced, or they cannot be repaired. They have to be replaced as a unit.
So are those games, I guess it depends on what grade, are they actually run via the clock on the scoreboard rather than a handheld at the bench? Yep.
Through the chair, each sport does it differently, and that's their choice as to how they run their sport. But social netball, premier netball tonight, they all use the score box on each individual court to use their own timer.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. There's nothing worse than a scoreboard that's not working properly. My question is how's it going to be funded? Is it OPEX? Is it CapEx? Is it reserve funding?
It's through the chair, not an expert on funding mechanisms, but it is a capital project.
Which means it's funded.
Through the chair, it'll be funded, we'll call it debt for lack of a better word, but it'll be funded out of cash and it will be depreciated to replace that funding.
So it shouldn't be debt, it's a replacement of a facility, of something that's there now.
We'd have to have a look to see if that was depreciated, because again, we're talking about the sports centre here where it hasn't been 100% depreciated and it's been all as one collective building, and we're slowly bringing those plant type items such as this into their own standalone where they are depreciated 100%, but that has not happened in the past.
Richard?
We're probably just a bit concerned. It's a big lump of money, and we looked at our blue sheet, which had all the difference in affecting our rates. We saw the rural one up there. 90,000 is quite a big hit because it all goes straight on the UAGC, which does affect the residential rate more so than it would affect others. But it may not, because it could fall into the. So I don't know how that'll affect rates. It'd be great to see the outcome on rates before we're committed to this one, if I could.
Seeking more information for the meeting on Thursday, Wednesday, sorry. Seeking more information. It'd be good to see also what depreciation is in the funded for in the EA Network Centre at the moment as well, and what it's planned to be used on in that year one. Something may have to move to bring this in. I'm hearing, and not many spoken, but not a desire to spend more money from rates on this. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I just want the income from the stadium itself in the last financial year. What was that?
I think Sarah might be just quickly doing some search on that for you.
Yep, thank you.
It's around 2 million.
That's what I thought, 2 million as well. It's
Excuse me, are you talking about the stadium or the whole facility?
No, just the stadium where the scoreboards are.
The stadium's definitely not 2 million, unfortunately. The stadium year to date, not year to date, year to April, the end of April, just looking at the most recent report, is about 205,000 in terms of fees.
So half our next year's fees nearly go in replacement of scoreboards.
So this may be one to let lie until Wednesday. What information do you need for the actual budget? Which will have the depreciation and what could be moved around to what wouldn't get done to replace this. Councillor Cameron?
And are there scoreboards and scoreboards? Like fancy ones versus basic ones, and now there's a difference in price and
Through the chair, very much so, and these are what we're looking at as an option is a quality scoreboard, but certainly not the bee's knees of scoreboards. You could spend more than you can imagine on
Where
a
do you
scoreboard.
buy that
if you
from?
really
A local
wanted.
New Zealand?
There's Christchurch. There is numerous Christchurch providers, and our preference would be to have someone relatively proximal that could offer support with that system as well, rather than North Island or overseas.
Is there a recommendation to let this lie on the table?
I'll move that.
Councillor McMillan. Councillor Cameron, all in favour, please say aye. Against carried. Ina 17, Tony.
Thank you. Sorry,
Thanks,
I just had that awful moment. I spent the time doing the slide, but forgot to put the recommendation into the summary, the report. So yesterday, questions were asked around the Welcome to Ashburton signs. They are currently in the draft LTP in year 4 at a budget of $161,000. So these were the 3 signs that the council of the day, which is the previous term of council to you guys, had confirmed as the 3 that they were thinking of. Not to say that can't be changed and nothing's locked and loaded. So I guess it's just seeking confirmation that you want, that you're happy for the project to stay in year 4 of the current LTP at that value.
What were the questions? Got Caroline.
Thank you. Those signs are all very different and all marvellous. Are some cheaper than others? Like that big A with a light sticking at the top looks fancy, whereas the bronzy, metally one with Ashburton on the side doesn't look quite so expensive. Can you help me understand that?
So where council got to with this was there was a workshop, and then council of the day were asked to vote on what their top 3 would be, and these were the top 3. The report to council that followed that workshop and that conversation indicated that these signs could all be done for around $50,000 to $55,000 each.
So if you've got 2 Ashburtons, that's $100,000, one on each end of the town.
Correct, but Simon said yesterday that he would be thinking of 3 signs, so to be able to pick up the entrance from Methven also into Ashburton from the highway there. So that's what the budget has been prepared on the basis of 3 signs. In terms of which actual sign, that's a conversation for another day.
And that could be revisited again for more modest signs that do the same job. Like we might be able to get someone local to develop a sign or something. I don't
Absolutely.
Just a question through the chair. The $161,000 that's set aside, is that inflated for year 4, or will that end up being more?
Through the chair, that's the number that's in the budget in year 4 at this point in time.
And again, like everything else, when we procured, the market will dictate the actual price. My memory is that we had 150, and I think it's been inflated to 161.
And it's definitely for 3 signs?
Yes, based on the report that I was reading this morning.
What did we do for that annual? So it was considered for the annual plan in 2023-24. Did we then bump it out to the to this long-term plan to consider? What I can't remember what we did.
Yes, following the quick trail of timelines that I did this morning, that's pretty much what happened based on costs. Was the desire to view this as a part of the bigger long-term plan package.
Caroline.
We had at that time, and people may remember, a big branding conversation with the community. Massive branding conversation with the community, and people felt that we needed some landmarking and some signage in the town. Personally, I still feel we still do need that, because we currently have the Rotary sign and the Lion sign, and I think and the very, very faded Lake Hood sign. So I think we need a more sophisticated signage, and we have had one submitter comes to mind, Mrs. Gates, who's given us her own sign recommendation, which is indeed a great sign as well. But I haven't seen the costings for that. I think we need a sign. I'm not committed to the $50,000, of course, but we need a sign. Like Rakai's got rocks and a sort of a. What are you laughing at?
But it's still a sign.
They've got rocks, and it looks really good. Rocks in a sort of a number 8 wire sort of deal, and looks really good.
It looks good.
Can't see it.
I'm going to put my light up now because
What, do we want to progress this or not? We'll leave it as we were in year 4. I think we could let this lie at the table too and pick it up again on Wednesday. Do you need any more information for that time? If I had to choose a site, it would probably be the middle one. I don't know how high it is, if it's 2 feet tall or 9 metres tall, and what is it, and has that been costed at all? Any of these signs? Well, I mean properly costed,
Through the chair, not that I can see from the
not
reports
just
that
a
I've
pluck
received.
out of the air. It'll be.
It's been an indication based on conversations, but nothing has been procured.
And remember, this work was a couple of years ago now, so and we've had no clear direction as to what sign to cost accurately, and it's a matter that's gone round and round the roses for a fair while now. So we're doing the best we can with the direction that we've currently got.
And what we want to achieve out of the sign as well. Get to Ashburton and you're there. We know they're there. We've got something there now, but Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I wasn't here when this done, but congratulate the councillors today on narrowing it down to 3, because there must have been all sorts of weird and wonderful ideas. Just sitting in this chamber, those middle ones sort of resonate with our carpet and our ambience that we have in here, and which wouldn't have been the case when this decision was made. So I think reflecting on where we're at in this building would be a nice image to somehow get onto those signs. So,
Yes, Wilson.
I would scrap the whole lot at the moment and go back to the start, because things have moved on since a few years ago. We now, Whakateri is being used as some people as a name. So that you would have to have some cultural advert to signs. So there's a whole lot of new things that biodiversity. There's a whole lot of new things that have happened with signs, and I wonder if the last council was really keen on it, they would have progressed it really early rather than kicking it down the road. So I'm just concerned that the times have changed a bit. The next time we do a sign, it'll be for different reasons, different options. It's something you do and build straight away. It's not something you leave sitting on the shelf.
Councillor Cameron. And we're still in question time. We haven't got a motion yet.
Do you have enough time to go? We've got a lot of really good engineering firms in town. To go to an engineering firm and get a bit of a firmer idea about what one of those signs would cost? No?
Not before the adoption of the LTP.
And it's in year 4.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
it's still a long way before the price is going to be 100% confirmed.
I would hate to see it removed from the long-term plan.
We're not anticipating removing it. It's in year 4. Councillor McMillan.
Kind of a question, but if we did get costings at some stage, I think 2 signs would be enough instead of the 3, so just on the state highway. So maybe would it be possible to get costings for just 2 signs instead of 3?
Do you want to do anything with this going forward, or do you want to let it lie and bring it back on Wednesday for another discussion? Yeah, we'll have had time to think about it. Councillor Mackle.
Yeah, just a quick one. There's nothing there that really sells Ashburton. Rogai's got its salmon, rocks, whatever. What have we got? Just a bit of old steel. A couple of plants.
Councillor Ellis.
I'm happy to leave it in year 4 and we pick this up again closer to the time.
Year 4, Lynette.
I'd just like to get a pricing on the middle ones, because we can adapt that, and I actually think it's quite nice to give us some idea what we're looking at down in year 4.
It'll be way different by year 4.
Yeah, we just don't have the capacity to do that by the time you adopt the long-term plan. But certainly, if it's left in year 4, within the next 2.5 years or so, we can start doing some more detailed work on it. But if it's going to stay in year 4, perhaps we don't need to do too much more with it at the moment.
So we've got no motion, but I think it is in year 4 now. Do we want to leave it in 4 direction? So we don't need a motion to leave it where it is. Councillor Todd.
I was just going to say I agree leaving it with year 4.
Year 4. Show of hands for year 4. Yep, there we go. Thanks. We were going to do representation review as well, but we're running out of time. So, but we've had an extension for putting that representation review info submission into Environment Canterbury till the 31st of May. Right? It is. So we've got some time. So we'll do that after their meeting on when we finish this meeting on Wednesday, if that works for you.
Yes, you read our minds. Thank you very much.
Great. So I'll adjourn the meeting now. Thank you all for your attendance. Thank you, members of the public, for being here and your diligence and contribution, listening to us. And we'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.